I'd like to talk about Buddha a little bit more and learn more about him in this video. My name is Dan Paulson and welcome to my channel. And what I've done is focus a lot of attention in my life on the hero's journey template, the patterns that we see, the similarities between religious and spiritual teachings from antiquity. And I've looked and explored that quite a bit. What I want to do is read some from this book, The Intro to Buddha, and talk about that a little bit to just, instead of just jumping right into verse, kind of how Buddhism started. What I want to do is cover verses from the Dhammapada, which is a collection of verses that come from a larger body of work from Buddhism. Just as a little bit of an example of that, I'll let you know how big this stuff gets. I've done some work with the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm going to be working more on that and showing how it is the hero's journey. But this is a excerpt from a larger body of work in Hinduism that is called the Mahabharata. And this is the Mahabharata. Yeah, that's a big teaching right there. That's Hinduism, and that's only a bit of it. Okay, the Dhammapada, similar, comes from Polytext, the Tipitaka. I can find, it looks like 30 books and 40 volumes. I can find a used hardcover set for $3,000. I don't own that. I'm not going to. But you can see that there is a lot from antiquity, and I'm going to tell you that after extracting everything, that what these are is a basic core teaching that the larger material then evolves from. That grows from the basic core teaching and spreads in the population because you got 1 million people that have nothing to do. I've got to be clear about something. When I say that there's a core teaching and then the religion grows from it, the religion isn't growing the core teaching. The religion is not adding any more to the core teaching. The core teaching, the minimal core teaching, is always all there is in the base. All of the rest of the stuff happens as stories grow from the inner world to the outer world in ways of conveying it by different people who are capable of teaching that. And you don't have to understand Jesus. Christianity's a bad way to do it. Just go right to Jesus. And I don't know how to say it clearly. All of the additional teachings that come from the core, they are not providing something additional. What they are is providing the same teachings again and again, only they are not they're not repeated in the same analogs. They're obscured in verbiage that sounds different. An anchored ship cannot sail is the same thing as you cycle around that which you cling to. Those are analogous to who and what we are. I will continue to move around something that I won't let go of, and if I'm a ship anchored in the sea, I keep going around and around. That's how it works. Those are all analogous terms, but when you shift them into the psyche, and they become mirror images of what is happening in here, but you have to place them properly in the psyche, it unfolds as the same teaching. And that is what we're going to find as you get into larger and larger scope of the core teaching, is that it's going to be repetitive. It's repeatedly teaching the same core material again, just sounding differently. It's very clever. You know, I'm going to suggest something like a wheel turning that's following a cart is the same thing as a tree that is growing up and getting cut down and growing up again and getting cut down, or a boulder that's getting rolled up a hill that before it's up there gets rolled back down and sent back up, or a liver that is getting eaten out and grows back and gets eaten out again. That these all come from myth and religions and spiritual teachings from antiquity, but they're all carrying something similar. They're carrying a cycle. They're carrying the idea that something continually repeats. And that is what we're looking for. That's why it's a little tricky to find it in here. But that is what is the core teaching. It's a self-healing path in here. And it's a tough path. And you could take it very quickly and then go about your life, or you can maybe write it into a big lifelong, if you do this practice, you do this meditation, you think this way, you process that way, then you're actually doing the healing. In fact, I struggle because I'm a little bit different. I've never been a practicing Buddhist, but Buddhism itself entails a process, if you study it, that it doesn't involve this going in aggressively. It's a more understanding process. There's 4 noble truths, and then there's an 8-fold path to enlightenment. So there are very specific instructions for Buddhism to go do this. But I would caution on where to find things. I was looking this up here, 4 Noble Truths. I was going to read this, and I pulled this from, what is this, Yuri.org, Kids, World Religions, Buddhist Beliefs. I don't know where this comes from. What does it say? 4 Noble Truths. Human life has a lot of suffering. This is not a good source. This is what I'm going to have an issue with, though, the next one. The cause of suffering is greed. That's wrong. I am open to all material. How do you distinguish, and how do you say, how do you know what to stick with and what to stay away from? The cause of suffering actually is what? What do we hold on to? Our fears, what we want. There's fear, not greed. Greed makes it sound like, oh, as long as you don't be greedy and want things for yourself, life is okay. That is not at all right. That is so far wrong. So be careful. What I've done, though, in my life is I've always been open to everything. Once you start closing things down, you limit your scope. What you have to do is be open to everything, but be discriminating. You question everything you hear from every source. And to look at that and to say the cause of suffering is greed, I would just look at that and think to myself, how does that apply to me? I have suffered my entire life, and not a damn bit of it has been because of greed. Look through these things and you can see there's issues with them. Anyway, Buddhism has a lot of stuff in the West that is way wrong, incredibly wrong. The spiritual path involves being free of things, being unfettered. If your path doesn't lead you there, anyway, okay. However, I'm just going to go right to what I believe is the interpretation of the nested core teaching that everything is built off of. And I theoretically suggest that is what is in here. So without further ado, I'm not going to go through this whole book. What I want to do is read the very beginning of it, kind of talk how Buddha became, do we treat it as if he's a real person or not, that kind of a thing. There's a point where Buddhism splits, and I'm not going to continue on beyond there. What I will suggest when we get to there is that we see that pretty much in a lot of religions, that it starts out with one thing, and even in Christianity, starts out as Roman Catholics, and then what do we have? The Protestant Reformation, and it continues to branch from there. That once if you got it turned to the inside, that doesn't happen. But as long as you are functioning in such a manner that you are reading this as if it is an outward-looking thing, it can go anywhere, and it will get very big, and it's only limited by the human's imagination, and it'll become diverse because humans are that diverse. And only in turning it inward does the diversity go away. Okay, I'll read the introduction. We'll get into it just a little bit here and then start on the verses. Introduction. There is much understanding about who or what the Buddha was. The word Buddha literally means awakened one. Eastern traditions recognize that there have been many Buddhas in the past and will be many Buddhas in the future. Nevertheless, there was a historical figure whose name was Siddhartha Gautama, who has become known as the Buddha for his age. He was also known as Shakyamuni Buddha, the sage of the Shakyas. That was his tribe. The life and the teachings of the historical Buddha are a milestone in human understanding, but the Buddha himself was an ordinary man with no claims to divine origin. Belief in a creator God has no part in Buddhist religion. In the Buddhist lineage, knowledge is not handed down like an antique. One teacher experiences the truth of the teachings and hands it down as inspiration to his students. That inspiration wakens the student who passes it on further. The teachings are seen as always up to date, and they are not thought of as ancient wisdom. So it's not like handing along a Bible and saying, here is what you have, or anything like that. This is, here's what life is. Here's how it works here now. The Buddha as a historical figure. The Buddhist experience relies on experiencing the truth for oneself, and ultimately it does not really matter whether or not there was a historical Buddha. However, the traditions and legends that surround the life of the Buddha contain, in allegorical form, the precise nature and form of the spiritual journey. The early stories and teachings of the Buddha were not written down until several centuries after his death. They were not seen as the authorized version. The Buddha encouraged his followers to put everything he said to the test, and therefore through the ages, followers of the Buddha have trusted their own wisdom rather than trying to interpret what might have been meant in old texts. Buddha wants us to continue to update this as we go along. He never said, here it is, stick with this doctrine, period. This is learn about life. Here's what I got. Take it and keep making it better. I won't keep hammering on it, but this is, it's a big topic. Contrast that with a different teaching that might say, here's the word. You don't question it. Versus, here's what we figured out. Let's work together and keep digging it out and find out what's up. Anyway, it goes on. I don't want to get into more of it. There's a place where they do create a story, but there's things that don't quite work out right. He emerges from his mother's side, for example. We have Eve emerging from the side of Adam. From the rib. Same concept. Eventually what happens, though, is Buddha goes from one extreme of rich to one extreme to just shutting off everything and finding that there's a middle path someplace, somewhere in the middle. And that's what we're looking for on this journey. There's a left and a right, and there's a middle. We're looking to let go of the ends. We're looking to center. Buddha's example right from the beginning, where it says there's a bit of a structure there, you can see that happening. I'm going to go ahead now and grab some verses out of the Dhammapada, a collection of verses, again, from a huge body of work. And this is considered to be a very pivotal. This honestly right here holds the core. It holds that core teaching. The core teaching is never in plain language in these, like Taoism, Buddhism. They're obscured. They're meant for the individual that has a question to process that. It's not plain language. If you get it in plain language, it's academic. If you figure it out for yourself, it's experiential. You've wired your brain. It becomes a part of you. If you have to go, oh my God, what does that mean? And you think about it and think about it and think about it. In the process of doing that, you're actually wiring your brain and getting better at doing this very thing right here. And they knew that. They didn't say, you've got to let go of your past. They might say something like, you are cycling around that which you cling to, or something like that. And you would have to go, oh my gosh, how do I figure that out? And I will simply suggest to you that through many years and many hours of playing this out in my psyche, what I have discovered through the material and through looking at oneself and changing one's life is that there's basically 5 component parts of the human psyche that we are dealing with that emerges through the material. The first of all is the conscious mind. When we're born, we don't really have it. We exist in a higher place. We're not aware of any of that, though. But that as we're born and as we begin to have life experiences and we develop enough awareness, our vision, our hearing, everything comes online, our capacity to sense, our emotions, as we are treated well or poorly, and we process that and we laugh or we cry, that starts becoming the basis of who and what we are, that builds who and what we are. And from there, our environment and continuation in the environment and our capacity to manage the environment continues to get put away, unbeknownst to us, emotionally, and that begins to develop who and what we are. That's the Eve emergence, or the subconscious emergence part of us. So now we've got 2 parts of us where we've got a conscious that's making decisions. We got a subconscious. And then within the subconscious, we've got characteristics that are positive or negative. Our memories. I hate that. It's going to act out. I love that. It's going to act out too. Those are the cycles that we're going to be watching for. We exist in a unified field together. The way, the glory of God. We flow in life together based on what we hold up here. So that is another part of the teaching. And then a final significant part is there's always a God overlooking whoever is on the seeking path. We're not going to see that much in Buddhism, but we'll see it in other material quite a bit. And in this case, that is our higher being. That's the part of you that if you can sit there and look at your life from a detached perspective, when you're not caught up in the emotions of it and you think, I don't know why I got a problem, but then you get caught up in it again. It's being that I don't know why I got a problem person all the time, the higher self, the the one that sees things without the connection to the emotions to it. And the verses, when we take the analogs and play them out in the psyche, they fit in those places right there. And they're going to make a difference in how they're going to show us how our life unfolds and how to change how our life unfolds by changing the memories that we have stored away and learning to let that go and learning to let go of things we cling to and hold to, and that is our problem, our hurt, our pain, our clinginess. But we interpret all the verses that way. I don't treat Lao Tzu, Buddha, Jesus, anyone is a historical figure. You get caught up there, you're looking in the physical world. They all have a body of work that is a teaching that once you play it out inside are going to get us to the same point. If they existed, they're trying to teach us something. None of them are saying, follow me, except the Romans tell you that Jesus, the implication there is you follow the teaching. If you're following Christ, you're following the body of work. You're not following Jesus Christ, the Savior, who's going to physically come back and save you. You're following the body of work. It fits, but it's in a different vehicle. At any rate, that's how I treat this as well. Every verse has to be decoded. None of it is plain language. And every bit of it has to do with me and myself and my life. This is for me or you or whoever says, I'm done. What do I do? Please help. Here's your guru right here in this book. One more thing I have to say about interpretation that I realize goes on, and I neglect to say this often, but whatever I'm about to provide as interpretation seems to be very dynamic. I am going to provide my best understanding based on playing it out in the psyche and putting it into the component parts so that there's no flexibility. It'll stay tight. It should stay an interactive step that we can function with. But I know that even after doing that, I can come back and read something the next day and go, oh, I get that better today than I did yesterday. They kind of grow as you grow, and they can become variable for people too. The function stays the same. Something that cycles around is always going to be a fixed teaching. However, what we're cycling around is going to be variable depending on you and what you hang on to. So that's where variation is going to come in, but the teaching is still going to get to the same thing. Whether you're ashamed, whether you're hateful, whether you're something, there's going to be a cyclical return of that. And yeah, that's it. I just wanted to say that what I'm going to provide here, please feel free to pick it apart more and don't take what I'm saying as a definitive last word, not by any means. That is how I'm going to proceed with the interpretation. Now, it starts right off in what is called the twin verses. Oh, and I'm going to be using the Max Mueller translation. It's probably the most common one out there. It's probably been around for 100 years now. And I'm going to start right off with the twin verses. Number 1. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. And 2, it's a twin verse, remember. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. Now, in this teaching, again, we're playing it out in the psyche. So as you're going through thoughts, it's not a conscious effort only. I'm thinking good thoughts. And things are not happening good, or it isn't in the conscious realm. It is really in a more hidden realm, and that's going to emerge. Let me say this, that when we started out in life, we had not classified experience. We did not create ourselves as that's good, that's bad. We did not become divided. When we're infants, we're a clean slate, ready to go. And our life experiences are what dictates what we become, generally speaking, unless or until we become aware of that and separate ourselves from that, realizing that we are simply living blindly. I hate this, I like that, whatever. We're wiring those things instead of stepped back from it. So at first in life, we become a product of how we had our experiences and how we maintain those experiences. And when he says All that we are is the result of what we have thought. That's what he's talking about, that all that we are is the result of what we have thought. Not conscious, subconscious. What do we have stored away? Shame, pain, hurt, anger, judgment, desires, drives, angst. I'm hanging on to things I can't let go. That is what our life is going to be. Exactly that. How do you feel? Without doing anything to change it, you're going to have more of it. And the pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. We got a cyclical thing coming around and around. Let's say you've got an issue with something and it gets triggered and it comes up and you keep trying to resolve it, but it doesn't, or you make amends in some way, but it comes back again and again. Something that you have thought at one point in time is emerging again and again cyclically based on that thinking. And that first one again, if a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. So the evil in you is going to continue to cycle around and around. Into 2, it does the same thing, except it says if a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. So now the cycles have went away. It emerges into now there's a big shadow of happiness that never leaves him by having the pure thoughts. And the pure thoughts are not simply sitting there going, I'm going to think purely. It's going in and taking the things that are frazzled in your subconscious mind that you have put away through perception and victim status or various other things that are behind a wall of fear, things that we have inside of us that we don't want to emerge. If we get that stuff out, then that cyclical failure that keeps happening stops and life emerges in happiness now. That's verse number 1 and number 2. That is the evil that resides inside of your mind from a past thought is going to continue to cycle around like a wheel. And that if you purify that, then happiness will emerge and it won't leave you. Verse 3, he abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. And those who harbor such thoughts, hatred will never cease. Number 4, he abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. And those who do not harbor such thoughts, hatred will cease. Subconscious level, not conscious. These are the things that are put inside. And when we use the terms evil and things like that, don't relate it to, I'm not an evil person. I don't have evil inside of me. Whatever happens that's acting out is because something happened to me that's bad. That is actually what you need to call the evil. It's not that you're evil. It is something that happened that was evil, is stored away that way, and it is acting out on its terms. It isn't you, it is it. It is evil. You have to say, yeah, that evil is inside of me. If it's acting out and I got to explain it and it's hurting me, well, that's evil. Evil is an analog. Call it bad vibes. I don't know. Viruses, something that needs to be rectified. They're using the term evil because it is something that is acting out that you don't want. Be careful of these words that we don't allow our definition of them to be firm in some areas and flexible in other areas, and then we don't know what to do. They're all going to be flexible terms. But even within that flexibility, there's going to be a structure. They can't be flexible all over the place. And I don't quite know how to explain that. I don't know how it works in my head. I see it that way. But it's things like what they're describing here is that evil is emerging out of you in this particular teaching. But you're not going to find that exact same analog elsewhere, but you'll find the same teaching put in various ways. You might have a demon that acts out from time to time. You might have a weed that grows out of your garden that needs to be pulled. There's a variety of ways of, it's all the mind, it's all internal, it's all up inside of here. So the term evil does belong. Just remember, it's not about you are evil. We all contain things within us that need to be healed. That's it right there. Don't let the term evil scare you away from that. This is our guru. Buddha, what do I do? How do I fix my life? He's telling us. 5. For hatred does not cease by hatred at any time. Hatred ceases by love. This is an old rule. This is not part of a twin verse, so I'm going to cover this one. For hatred does not cease by hatred at any time. Hatred ceases by love. This is an old rule. That's that balance. Whatever you feed something into makes it bigger. If you feed the opposite to it, it makes it smaller. Yeah, that's it. However, 6, this is a fun one. The world does not know that we must all come to an end here. But those who know it, their quarrels cease at once. 7 and 8. He who lives looking for pleasures only, his senses uncontrolled, immoderate in his food, idle and weak, Mara the tempter will certainly overthrow him as the wind throws down a weak tree. 8. He who lives without looking for pleasures, his senses well controlled, moderate in his food, faithful and strong, in him Mara will certainly not overthrow any more than the wind will throw down a rocky mountain. Mara is tempter. Mara is the evil, the temptation, the things in life that bring you off course. Temptress, Satan, all of those things, the things that keep you from being what you want to be, or what you should be or could be. Sometimes we want to be things that are not the right thing. We can't be hurting other people, so use these. They're very much your teaching. This is your verse. And in this case, pleasure, senses, clinging, wanting. I want this. I want that. I need more. I want more. Oh, I got a new car. I'm not happy with it anymore. I want more. Those aren't even the greatest examples. We're trying to modernize what they were teaching back then. But the idea is that you are always wanting, always clinging, that you're not happy at the time flowing along through life, that you're not happy now because you are wanting something. And that is going to cause you to live a life that is unhappy while you are wanting something. That in order to be happy, you must find a way to cease clinging on to things. That can be difficult. This is a spiritual teaching. Literally, if you are wanting food because you're starving to death, you don't let go of that. That's a physical world reality. This is in the spiritual realm when we get to this point. As people are living lavishly and wanting more and more, you lose touch with the simplicity and where we come from. You get more caught up in the physical world and less connected to the spiritual self and to other people. And when you live that way, you will be overthrown. The tempter, the temptations. If you live in that manner, it's easier to give in to the habits, the things that you want to try to leave behind because they're not good for you. I think the potential for always for vicious cycles of finding some kind of a relief or enjoyment or something like that happens as you go, I like that. Let me get more. The more we do stuff like that, the least satisfaction we get from our initial, sampling of life. And we need more and more of it, and we don't get satisfaction. That sounds like a song, doesn't it? Sometimes just enjoying simplicity and not going, oh my God, this was so good. Please, more. Whatever it is. We get caught up into that vicious cycle and we lose the capacity to just be happy with the simple things. That's something I can see very common and very big in the West. It's very maybe difficult for people to extract themselves from, is that there's just, I look and I see what people have out there and I got to have it and I want more and I need more and I'm striving for more. And people's lives are a rat race, and you get caught up in that. And what are you satisfied? Do you ever sit and go, oh, that was great. I'm going to do that again next week because this moment of, oh my God, that was so good, is so enjoyable. I want to savor that. I don't want to come back tomorrow and go, oh, double it. Next day, triple it, four. It doesn't work anymore. Yeah, we get out of control. And number 8, if you live without looking for those, with your senses well controlled, moderate in food, faithful and strong, then you won't be overthrown by temptation any more than a wind throws down a rocky mountain. So if you're more in charge of your life, step back, taking control, you will have a much better chance at succeeding. So we have something that moves along here where it tells we're the result of our thoughts. You abused me, you beated me, defeated me, robbed me. Those are the thoughts, the anger that we have to let go of. We have to let go of those thoughts. We also cannot live lives looking for pleasure and desire and wanting things like that. We're getting that out of just the first 8 verses in the book. But also the idea that, hey, we end here. Let's work this out. Let's not go, we'll pick it up next lifetime, next planet. Let's not do that. Buddha didn't tell us to do that. 9. He who wishes to put on the yellow dress without having cleansed himself from sin, who disregards temperance and truth, is unworthy of the yellow dress. 10. But he who has cleansed himself from sin is well grounded in all virtues and endowed also with temperance and truth. He is indeed worthy of the yellow dress. Again, these are going to play out inside, so this is not literal. These are analogs: the yellow dress, the saffron dress, the robe. Are you worthy of being a monk? If you wish to become a monk without cleansing yourself first, without emptying yourself, without getting rid of these things that you cling to, you're unworthy of the yellow dress. To be worthy of it, you must get rid of those things. But this teaching is not how to be a monk. This is how the monk here is analogous to the Buddha nature, the one who is purified. We wish to become the monk, but we're not going to do it by putting on a saffron robe. We want to do it by becoming purified, by clean. We're still going to live our own lives. We're just not going to walk around with begging bowls and sleep on the floor. We will nevertheless cleanse ourselves from sins, and we will have good lives and become monks in our own way. In my terms, I would say, in order to live in monk-like purity, then you do cleanse yourself from all of your sins. 11. They who imagine truth in untruth and see untruth in truth never arrive at truth, but follow vain desires. They who know truth in truth and untruth in untruth arrive at truth and follow true desires. This was very easy to look at today and say, I see the physical reality of this. People are denying what is real because they just got their own belief. But that's not it. That is a product of, in society, that is a product of millions of people being like that. What does it mean to us? Imagining truth and untruth. Here is how I read it, and I'm going to say it has to do with seeking and knocking, with no caveats. This is looking for reality. This is starting off on my path saying, I don't know what's there. Something is. Let me go look. Let me explore. And people tell you things, but they can't show you things. Don't call that truth. It's a data point. You could look at it and say, okay, I consider that, but continue to look. If you don't see that, if somebody's telling you something that they say is the answer, and you look at it and go, I hear you saying that, but you can't show it to me. You can infer it, but a lot of other people can infer things. I'm not going to stop here and call that truth. You'll get stuck right there. It isn't the truth. You would probably never find the truth if you're always open and looking. When you're convinced you have the truth, you're done looking. You're not looking anymore. In my terms, I would say, in order to live in monk-like purity, then you do cleanse yourself from all of your sins. 13. Oh, wait a minute. 11. They who imagine truth in untruth and see untruth in truth never arrive at truth, but follow vain desires. They who know truth in truth and untruth in untruth arrive at truth and follow true desires. This was very easy to look at today and say, I see the physical reality of this. People are denying what is real because they just got their own belief. But that's not it. That is a product of, in society, that is a product of millions of people being like that. What does it mean to us? Imagining truth and untruth. Here is how I read it, and I'm going to say it has to do with seeking and knocking, with no caveats. This is looking for reality. This is starting off on my path saying, I don't know what's there. Something is. Let me go look. Let me explore. And people tell you things, but they can't show you things. Don't call that truth. It's a data point. You could look at it and say, okay, I consider that, but continue to look. If you don't see that, if somebody's telling you something that they say is the answer, and you look at it and go, I hear you saying that, but you can't show it to me. You can infer it, but a lot of other people can infer things. I'm not going to stop here and call that truth. You'll get stuck right there. It isn't the truth. You would probably never find the truth if you're always open and looking. When you're convinced you have the truth, you're done looking. You're not looking anymore. The following vain desires, I would just say, as I see that in theistic people who have a conviction of something supernatural, a belief system based in fear that they start with, and everything that they seek is based on that initial belief. Are they going to find the truth? They're going to find untruth that continues to support their belief. We all do that. What did Feynman say? I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. Yeah. If you're looking for truth, you better ask questions. And if you can't ask questions, leave. You're in the wrong place. They who know truth in truth and untruth in untruth will arrive at truth and follow true desires. That's just the opposite, yeah. When you get it right, it works. 13. As rain breaks through an ill-thatched house, passion will break through an unreflecting mind. Its counterpart 14. As rain does not break through a well-thatched house, passion will not break through a well-reflecting mind. This is letting us know that the unreflecting or the reflecting mind, this is the issue right here. The mind that's the gateway. Your conscious thinking and how you process it is the gateway. When you turn from outward to inward, that's the point right there. And what breaks through that? How well is it thatched? How strong are you? How good are you in your convictions? But that takes a reflecting mind. If it's not working out, it's mental. It is a mental process, not a spiritual one, not a supernatural one. 15. The evildoer mourns in this world, and he mourns in the next. He mourns in both. He mourns and suffers when he sees the evil of his own work. Okay, the evildoer mourns in this world, and he mourns in the next. We are the evildoer, but what are we doing? It is whatever we're doing that's bad at some point in time that we might have regrets for. So, again, let's be careful with the terminology and shift ourselves into it and not hold those terms so tough on ourselves. We're mourning in this world and mourn in the next. We mourn in both. We currently exist in two worlds. That is the physical world and the spiritual world. And we mourn in both of those worlds. Something like this, it sounds like there's the potential for a life beyond, but we already heard from Buddha early on that he who knows that life ends here, their quarrels cease at once. So we have to go someplace else with this. He mourns and suffers when he sees the evil of his work. Think of this, in my case, coming from a place where I had a lot of issues inside of me. There were times I would act out, and there's a point where I'm waking up or I'm just doing things for some reason that after I finish lashing out and I've done damage, maybe punched holes in walls or screamed and yelled or called people names, very horrific things. And I would think, my God, why do I do that? Why am I doing that? I'm suffering in both worlds. I'm suffering in the inner world and I'm suffering in the outer world. And I'm suffering when I see the evil of my own work. I'm not in control. 16. The virtuous man delights in this world and he delights in the next. He delights in both. He delights and rejoices when he sees the purity of his own work. We got to get in and purify our minds. 17. The evildoer suffers in this world and he suffers in the next. He suffers in both. He suffers when he thinks of the evil he has done, and he suffers more when going on the evil path. So this goes and elaborates it a little bit further. We suffer when we just think about it. Oh, I hate this or that or shame or something. But we suffer even more when going on the evil path. We suffer even more when it manifests and it comes out into physical life. Because if it does manifest and come into physical life, look at it. There will be people around that look at you like, yeah. The virtuous man is happy in this world and he's happy in the next one. He is happy in both. He is happy when he thinks of the good he has done, and he is still more happy when going on the good path. The dichotomy, the opposite of the first one. Out of control. Maybe times you're like, oh, I'm in control, except every once in a while I blow up. That's what we're clinging on to. Those are the demons that need to be exorcised, the roots, the weeds in our garden. 19. The thoughtless man, even if he can recite a large portion of the law but is not a doer of it, has no share in the priesthood, but is like a cowherd, counting the cows of others. So people who know this material and can blabber it all day long but don't exercise it, they're just followers. They haven't actually done it. They'll tell you, here's what you need to do. Hey, knock it off. Get out of here. Yeah, you got to be nice and peaceful. God, can you believe what she's wearing? Yeah, that's the stuff right there. We all see that. Everybody's got to be beautiful. If you're not there, we're not Buddha. The follower of the law, even if he can only recite a small portion of the law, but having forsaken passion and hatred and foolishness, possesses true knowledge and serenity of mind, he, caring for nothing in this world or that to come, has indeed a share in the priesthood. That describes somebody happy, living in the here and the now, not concerned, not frazzled, past is let go of, future is not, you don't have angst over all of that. There you have it. You've let that go. That finishes, for now, at least this version of the interpretation of the verses in chapter 1, the twin verses by Buddha. And before moving on to the next chapter, I just wanted to let's do a quick overview of what that was. First of all, twin verses. Do it this way. This will happen. Do it that way. That'll happen. Do it this way. This will happen. Do it that way. That'll happen. Right off the bat, there's a sequence right here showing us, right in the beginning, duality begins through thought process. The way we're thinking about things, the way we're storing away things, is what creates who and what we are and creates our life. That our higher self needs to interact with our lower self for healing, or at least for recognizing at this point in time that what is inside of us is cycling around repeatedly, and that through earnestness, through letting things go, through having simple life, through healing, that we begin to have a much better life. That as we seek for truth, we seek with discrimination, with an open mind. I put that verse in there, that the comparative one, Jesus, when he says, judge not, but judge righteous judgment. You don't judge anything you're learning, but you judge the righteousness of it. Be accepting, be open-minded, but don't be accepting to everything that comes in. We have a lot of examples of people who are absolutely convinced because they had this experience or they had that experience and it was so real to them that this is reality. They'll tell you that. You might have a couple of them that get together and had similar experiences that will group it up, but you step back and go, there's 8 billion people on this planet. 5 of them said they had that. Do I believe that is reality? What are my experiences? It doesn't mean that you dismiss it. It means that you go, wow, that's not what everybody's experiencing. Let's keep looking. That's how you seek. Open-minded, discriminating. And don't just believe people because they say, it happened. It happened. Believe me. Yeah. A couple nights ago, I bruised my elbow in bed. I'm having a dream, a vivid dream. It's a weird thing. But I feel in the dream, there's a reason I have to protect my wife, and I'm swinging at somebody that's going to do something to her. It's a weird dream. Instantly, I wake up in pain because I'm laying on my side. I'm swinging my arm. It wraps the bed and hits the frame. And I wake up like, what is going on? Literally, the dream was so real, I'm acting out. But I wake up and go, oh, that was a dream. But I think, the mind is incredible. It was so convincing that I, in my sleep, was acting out and injured myself. Yeah. Be careful when you seek. We're complicated, but we can fool ourselves easier than anything else. Anything else. Make sure you keep an eye on that. Earnestness. Yeah. Seeking that way. That's chapter 1. That is chapter 1. Okay. The next section, chapter 2, is on earnestness. Verse 21. Earnestness is the path of immortality, nirvana. Thoughtlessness, the path of death. Those who are in earnest do not die. Those who are thoughtless are as if already dead. Okay, and as with a lot of these translations from antiquity, I was a little concerned with the word vigilance, and so I grabbed another translation, a recent from Gil Fronsdal, which I have the entire book read in a video. He uses the term vigilance. Vigilance is the path to the deathless. So we're just looking at maintaining focus. Thoughtless in this case is you are not thinking yet of awareness. You are not aware of the fact that you are a product of the world. We all start off that way. And at some point, some people emerge and realize, oh, I'm a product of the world. I'm going to cease doing that. I'm going to let go of all of the things that I'm hanging on to and all the things that I cling to. And I'm going to rise out of that mess instead of being in there. There's the difference between being in nirvana, elevated above everything going on, or being dead down into it. Those who are in earnest do not die, and those who are thoughtless are as if dead already. 22. Having understood this clearly, those who are advanced in earnestness delight in earnestness and rejoice in the knowledge of the Aryas, the elect, chosen ones. The Aryas, the elect. They're using a term here as if there's some certain people that rise above an elect. There is. There are people that go, shit, I'm out of that. I got something else going on. That's all. It's nothing magical or mystical. It's an awareness, a brain type or something. Having understood this clearly, those who are advanced in earnestness delight in earnestness. You continue to focus on what you want. Let go of the things in the world. Fast as to the world. Focus on earnestness. And rejoice in the knowledge of the elect. We're gathering this from antiquity. These wise people, meditative, steady, always possessed of strong powers, attain to nirvana, the highest happiness. This one says wise people. You know what? I don't like that word, wise people. I think that there are people who do it because for some reason they're just like, I'm going to go do this. I think there's a lot of wise people on the planet that have no interest in spiritual pursuits. And, yeah, at any rate, I think what happens here, the wise people, what we're looking at is people who are intensely understanding that this is a lifestyle. You don't go to some place Sunday morning and spend a few hours worshiping it and then call it good for the week, if that even. And that runs all over the map. There are people that do live a life, but that's what this is staying here. It's a lifestyle. It's not something you practice once or twice a week and you're good to go. Everything is going to work out for you. This is something that you work at. You achieve the highest happiness, not by waiting for it to happen, but by continually functioning at it and living this way in a diligent manner. But I think that is not going to be because you're a wise person. That'll be a factor. It's going to be because you're a driven person. Yeah, that's what I think. Okay, and you saw what I just did? Let me jump back to Gil Fronsdale again and read it again. It's not that these are right over the other. It's that the teaching originated in a Tibetan language called Pali, and it had to get translated from there to English, and there aren't direct translations, so people do their best. Sometimes it's better if you're studying these to have always, if you really want to dig into it and you don't read the original language and understand it, and you're stuck with English like me then the best way to do it is to use different translations. However, don't just, that's a tough one too. You might think, oh, like I did early on, I'll just get a bunch of Dhammapadas and you start reading through, and it's difficult. And some of them are copies of each other, and some of them are, here was one and somebody couldn't translate it, so they took this and they changed the verbiage of it, and they start getting more watered down. So be cautious of the source. Take a look at reviews and look at who the author, where the author got their knowledge from. Are they a scholar? Do they read it? At the same time, it's not just translation. There are concepts in the verse. And if somebody doesn't know the concepts are there, these spiritual concepts are there, and they're simply trying to translate the words as best they can, it's very easy to lose something along the way. We have to have some good translations where you're kind of averaging out the words and seeing what's going on. Let's take a look at these real quick again, just to see an example of that. These wise people, meditative, steady, always possessed of strong powers, attain to nirvana, the highest happiness. Then we go read that same verse in the Fronsdal Gills, absorbed in meditation, persevering, always steadfast. The wise touch nirvana, the ultimate rest from toil. See how differently they sound. Okay, and I apologize for wandering all over with the translations. I think that it's important to have that information out there too. It's it actually is a very complicated thing. I don't think it's as simple as grabbing one book and get going for it. There's a lot of parts we're not looking at that I've ran into just by years of frustration, but having a lot of time to work through it. Okay, so if we go to interpret this one, then absorbed in meditation, persevering, always steadfast. The wise touch nirvana, the ultimate rest from toil. We're looking for inner peace, nirvana, everything's good. Absorbed in meditation, persevering, always steadfast. It's a lifestyle. It's not something you just take a shot at once a week. 24. If an earnest person has roused himself, if he is not forgetful, if his deeds are pure, if he acts with consideration, if he restrains himself and lives according to law, then his glory will increase. Do you know the Tao? If you unname things and you resolve issues within yourself, you'll flow better in the way. You'll flow better in the Tao. If you have aught against your brother in Jesus' terms and you come to the altar to leave your gift because you're looking for good graces and you realize, I've got an issue against my brother, go take care of that first before you look for good graces. Then God will grace you in secret. Let's look at this again. If an earnest person has roused himself, if he is not forgetful, if his deeds are pure, if he acts with consideration, if he restrains himself and lives according to law, then his glory will increase. Your life will be better and your life will unfold better if you do these things. It's not just a matter of feeling better. Your life will also change. 25. By rousing himself, by earnestness, by restraint, and by control, the wise man may make for himself an island which no flood can overwhelm. You become strong in what you do until you become that. And when you become the epitome of that, that is who and what you are. You just focus on it and, yep, you become that. This is one of those making a video, getting back, editing, listening to stuff and going, hey, I got something better. This is how it grows like this. So in that last one, we also saw by rousing himself right there. And him, her, this is gender neutral. Him is the consciousness. She is the subconscious. In this case, though, we have by rousing oneself. That's the self-calling. If you've been following along and as part of the hero's journey, there's a calling and then a denial to call. But then I put out a video later and said that calling is actually self-calling. That's you saying, oh my God, I've had it. When it's time for this path, the inner path, it is a personal self-calling thing. And that's exactly what this is saying right here by rousing himself. There it is. You call yourself. Okay, 26. Fools follow after vanity. The wise man keeps earnestness as his best jewel. Fools follow after vanity. You know, I kind of see this in a little bit different way. I struggle with this, I'll be honest with you. Let me play with it a little bit with you. You know, this sounds like the people in the world that are all interested in the physical world and things like that. They're all fools. And the wise man keeps the earnestness as his best jewel. That's, okay, that's nice. Yay, wow. How important is that? I mean, is that something that we need to know, or is that something that we're going to do anyway? And then I look at it and I realize that there are people that are personalities. I've been in life and with enough people to realize that there are people that have certain propensities to things like, cars, boats, things like that are just like, that's their life. That's where they go. That is, I mean, I don't hang out with them or anything, but I've known them and it was like, oh my gosh, they thought it was weird that I didn't care about, how many horsepower was under the hood of my car. It's like, put gas in, it goes, It was not a big deal to me. It was utilitarian. It wasn't about the car. It was about going someplace. To them, it was about the car. Those are things that you think of sometimes and go, is that because they're vain, or is that because that's the way they are and that's what they like? I don't know that this is saying anything more than there are people who are going to do this, and there are people that won't. Calling them wise or fools, that kind of strokes one's ego, doesn't it? I don't like doing that. I don't think that's a good idea. So I wanted to look at that one a little bit, and I don't know what the original said or anything, but I'm not 100% comfortable with that. To be honest, in my head, it's starting to connect up like many are called and few are chosen parallel. I don't know that fools follow after vanity. If you bring that into the psyche, is that you, or if I'm the fool, I follow after vanity. I'm following after things that are measuring up to other people. Maybe that's it. Fools are the ones that go, I wonder what they think about me. I wonder what they feel. I got to put on an impression. That would make sense. And the wise man's like, I don't care. I still think that's a personality thing, though. Just from a lifetime of looking at it. There are people that are going to always be one way. There are people be another. Anyway, all right. 27. Follow not after vanity, nor after the enjoyment of love and lust. He who is earnest and meditative obtains ample joy. Okay, in this case, I'm not quite happy, with things like the enjoyment of love and lust. Lust, okay. Love, I don't quite know how to define that. My wife and I live together. I think a lot of people do, and you find that you love each other and life is better living together. You wouldn't want to not. So it's not suggesting that in any rate. Love is something that is very acceptable. The enjoyment of love and lust. We naturally enjoy love of our, children of life, of experiences. So I struggle with that a little bit. But it says, he who is earnest and meditative obtains ample joy. We'll let that go as, maybe I need to work on that verse more. 28, when the learned man drives away vanity by earnestness, he, the wise, climbing the terraced heights of wisdom, looks down upon the fools. Free from sorrow, he looks down upon the sorrowing crowds, as one that stands on a mountain looks down upon them that stands upon the plain. When you're existing in your higher self, you're going to be up here looking down upon things. You're no longer a part of that flow of things. You have emerged above it. There is a part of our consciousness that already resides there. However, we are physically emergent from down here. So what we have to do is disconnect to come up here, to let go of all of our earthly bondages. Allows us to rise up and see down below. It elevates us. Actually, let me try to describe it this way. We're all born in that flow of the mass of people, all the things going on, and we want to be disconnected from it and not affected by it. Mentally, when we start out in life, as we become the product of what we are in that flow, and we're physically there as well as mentally there. What we're looking to do now is mentally rise above it. And when you mentally rise above it, you are still existing in that flow. However, you are now not connected and attached to the flow in such a way that it's yanking you around. You are now establishing the way your mind is, which then allows you to go through that flow in a manner more conducive to happiness. And that is exactly what we're looking at in this process. Earnest among the thoughtless, awake among the sleepers, the wise man advances like a racer, leaving behind the hack. Yeah, you move ahead when you start finding answers, huh? Okay, so what happens next? 30. By earnestness did Indra rise to the lordship of the gods. Indra in Hinduism was the god of the gods. So this is the highest achievement you're trying to rise to inside of you. You're going to become your higher self. You need to become Indra. People praise earnestness. Thoughtlessness is always blamed. We're going to be using our mind. 31. A bhikshu, mendicant, the monk, the person that's on the path. This is the one who is saying, I am looking for, yeah, that's us if we're on this path. We are the mendicant who delights in earnestness, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, moves about like fire, burning all his fetters, small or large. I picture this individual who realizes thought is what you need to resolve things, fetters, what you cling to, what you hold on to. In earnestness, they are going and resolving all of those issues, small or large, completely free. Gospel of Thomas. Gospel of Philip, that's right. Jesus went in and cleared out the whole place while others only did it partially. This says, the bhikshu, the mendicant, looks on with fear on thoughtlessness and moves about like fire, burning all his fetters, small or large, cleaned out the whole place. See those parallels? A bhikshu, mendicant, also, who delights in reflection, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, cannot fall away from his perfect state. He is close upon nirvana. So reflection is being able to, reflect, right? Look on your life. Look at all of the things in there. If you can face everything that there is inside of you, you're okay. If you have things inside of you you can't face, you are not reflecting. You have to continue the reflection until the issues are resolved, till a forgiveness happens, till a release, till the bondage, whatever you're hanging on to, has released. Okay, so in those three, by earnestness did Indra, and I said Hindu god, Buddha as well. Indra is the god of the gods. So this is who we're going to be. We become our higher self. Then with earnestness, we mentally interact with our memories aggressively, small or large, and get rid of all of them. And remember in the beginning, it started out that we are a product of what we have thought, how it works and the balance of it, and the dichotomies. If you think good, things will be good. If you think bad, cyclical failure is going to happen. And it leads all the way up into here. It's talking how we go through the healing process. All of that is nested in here, but you have to play it out into the psyche. And then look at each one of them, decode each one of them and see what they are. And it is a process, a sequential process for turning in, looking at your issues, focusing on them, getting rid of them. Okay, well, for now, that finished up Chapter 2, and next is Chapter 3. I'm an hour into it. I'm going to go ahead and call it quits at this. I've got to say, if you've made it this far, it's fair to understand, to say and to understand both that when people come and say, wow, you just take too long putting this stuff out, and I sit here and think, my gosh, I have abbreviated this so much. I wonder if anybody gets anything out of what I said. Our biases today, the time we take, the time we have, our lack of capacity to conceptualize their life thousands of years ago with nothing but free time and this stories, the lessons. We're looking for life. We're looking for stories. We're looking to heal in the same way then that we're trying to heal now. These become our guru. It is not a simple thing. People that want it simple, it's a mental process that can be very complicated. Although for me, I feel like there's a point where I turned a corner on being able to see what was going on and reading things not as you kind of read the story instead of reading the story. You're translating it into what it's doing in your psyche as you're reading it. And once you make that translation, and you do it by repeatedly just doing what I've been doing here, going through the verses. And sometimes you go through and you go, wow, I think I got a good idea. And then the next day you come back and go, oh my gosh, how embarrassing. That's completely wrong. I'm looking outward. I didn't even turn it in, play it in my psyche. I still do that with this too. I haven't finished. It grows. It continues. Anybody that gets there is done searching. Anybody that finds the true path and tells you they've got it, follow them. They're not going anywhere. It's an inner path. It's an inner path. Anyway, I'm going to let it go at this one. I'll continue on with this. It'll keep me busy for a while. I think it's something I need to focus on. So it'll help with interpretations of other material as well. Well, until I do get the next video up, disconnect from the world. You got to let things go or you'll get wrapped up in it. In order to stay on this path, get away, get some contemplative time. The more we're hooked into the world we want to leave, the more we're anchored into it. We're not resolving our fetters. We're not cleaning out the things that we're holding on to that maintains our position in that lower. We can't rise above. We're going to be there. It's all just analogous terminology to the way physical life is right now. Right now. And yeah. All right. Well, until the next video, love one another, and I'll see you then.